You made me cry when you said goodbye. Ain't that a shame?
You're listening to Where You Live with Gene and Tony.
Thanks for joining us today. This is Where You Live. We're broadcasting on AM 1280 The Patriot here from the Natural Green Lawn and Landscape Studios. Remember, Natural Green is a locally owned and operated lawn and landscape care company, and their mission to use the most environmentally sensitive products available to keep your lawn and landscape looking lush and beautiful while still healthy for both people and pets. Now, give them a call. See what they can do for you today. Their number 763-213-2410. Before we get back into our story, we're talking about a major shift with FHA policy that could leave many homeowner associations that are recertified and approved for FHA financing unable to do so the next time around. As I mentioned before, that number has gone down by half. There, at about 5 years ago, there was well over 40,000 HOAs certified for FHA. Today, that number sits at just over 26,000 and decreasing rapidly because of regulations that we're talking about here. Before we go back to that, though, I would like to just also tell our listeners we've got a free resource for you. It's a gift we want to give you. We put together a bi-monthly newsletter called What's New. A lot of what we talk about on the show, we talk about in further detail. People that we have on the show will also write and contribute. You can start receiving that at no cost. Give us a call at 952-922-2500. Ask for Lori. She'll make sure that you start receiving it either electronically or by mail. So we were talking about all of a sudden now, people at HUD were saying, you know what? We think that this change in 1994, this major amendment to the National Housing Act, is diametrically opposed to this language that a number of condo association governing docs have that state that they would prefer and they would like to prohibit individual owners from leasing their homes for periods of less than 30 days. And we talked and gave just a good reason for it. There's a lot of wear and tear. How about the fact that this property is owned by all of the people that own property at this community? And let me ask this question. Don't they have a right to say what they want to do? It seems to me that would be a logical statement. But now we are hearing that from back in 1994, there was an amendment to the National Housing Act. Now, it is probably a little bit quick to just say, well, it was an amendment. It sounds like single, just one little statement. We're talking about an amendment of over 39 pages, okay? Over 39 pages in 1994 went to the National Housing Act as an amendment because our politicians said in their infinite wisdom that we need more regulations. We didn't get it quite right the first time, so we need maybe just a few more. Well, out of those 39 pages, there are 2 pages here just written describing what the purpose of the National Housing Act is. And I thought I would read some of this for you, our listeners, because after all, if HUD is making a claim that this prohibition is diametrically opposed to the purposes of what they're trying to accomplish in the 1994 amendment to the National Housing Act, shouldn't we know what that is? Shouldn't we know what is stated there? And here are the purposes. Now, these are, I will admit, these are lofty and important goals. I'm not going to deny that at all. But are these being transgressed against because of a governing document with an HOA that said no, they're going to prohibit leasing of units for 30 days or less. Well, we'll talk about that and you be the judge, okay? So what are the purposes? What are the goals for the National Housing Act? They said the purposes of this title are, number one, to expand the supply of decent, safe, sanitary, and affordable housing with primary attention to rental housing for very low income and low income Americans. So they want to supply housing that is decent and safe, sanitary, affordable, not only for those who are purchasing, but their primary attention. So their number one focus, they say, is to rental housing and for very low income and low income Americans. They said they want to be able to mobilize and strengthen the abilities of states and local governments to design and implement strategies for achieving adequate supply of decent, safe, sanitary, and affordable housing. They want to make housing more affordable for very low income and low income families. Now we need to ask the question, how does this prohibition cause any concerns for not being able to meet, or what is going on here that might actually be counterproductive to the goals of the National Housing Act? Do you think that having a prohibition that says if you're going to rent out your home in an association, you can't do it for 30 days or less, do you think that that is counterproductive, that is in transgression against the purposes of the National Housing Act, which made their focus affordable housing for the rentals for those with very low incomes? I'm going to make the statement no. As a matter of fact, I think it's just the opposite. I think what's going on is that we have people who, once again, don't understand the industry. And when you live in this culture, this current culture in Washington, where you have 68, count them folks, 68 new regulations a day, cranking out just over 2,000 new regulations a month, I think you've got a clear case of the left hand not knowing what the right hand is doing. I think people have no real understanding of what the consequences are of some of these new regulations, let alone whether or not they run arbitrary and against other written law that is already established. And I think that we need to take a look at this. Take a look at the example of a small renting for a small period of time. It has been my experience being in property management now for almost 30 years, okay? Almost 30 years of time. The smaller the time period being offered for someone wanting to rent a unit, usually the higher the premium, the higher the price is for someone. Why? Because what does an investment owner, a landlord really want? They want someone who's in there for a long period of time, don't they? That's what I want. I have a rental unit. My wife and I do. We have our renter who just purchased a home. But you know, he's been our renter for 3.5 years. I kind of like that. I kind of like the idea that I don't have to keep thinking about it over and over again, having to pay extra money to put the property on the market, to let people know, to paint over again, to shampoo carpets, to go through a number of things, and then possibly have it empty for a month or two, finding someone else. And I want someone there for a good period of time. Rentals that are done so for a very short period of times, that is a very special industry, and that's usually for something that would be considered vacation homes. You have a vacation home like a cabin. You have a timeshare that's in Las Vegas or in Hawaii. Guess what? Yeah, you probably can rent it out for a week at a time, but that is very few and far between. Most people are going to want to see someone there for a long period of time so they don't have to think about it. So when you are offering this unit for a quicker amount of time because of all the other work you have to do, because of turning around, you have to up your price. Is that productive to the goals of the National Housing Act, which wanted to make housing affordable for those of very low incomes? I would say no, it's not. Well, let's talk about this a little bit further. We need to take a break right now, so let's do it. Don't go away. There's one more segment of Where You Live, and we'll wrap up this issue of FHA policy that may leave many condo associations ineligible for recertification of FHA financing.